1, 2, 3, 4, I declare Infinity War. What up, my Nimians, and welcome back to NimTV. I'm your host, NimTV2299, and we are finally doing a movie review of Infinity War. Something I was going to do when it first came out, but there was some problems. I wasn't able to go to the theater, and then I was going to go another day, and my movie pass wasn't working for different various reasons. Well, one reason in particular, but I'm not going to talk about that, so I ended up seeing it now, a little over a week late. So, and somehow I was actually able to avoid basically all spoilers, except maybe one tiny spoiler, but it wasn't anything huge, so I ultimately ended up going in pretty blind, not knowing anything about the movie, other than, oh, Thanos is trying to get Infinity Stones, everybody knows that. But, yeah, so I somehow avoided spoilers after all that time. But anyways, finally saw it, and what do I have to say about this movie? I enjoyed it a lot. As a Marvel fan, as somebody who's been following this whole Marvel thing basically since the beginning, let me think. Yeah, I've been following this basically since the beginning. It's great. If you have been following this from the beginning, you're going to love this movie, no doubt. That's one thing I can say. Now, if you are just watching it for the first time, like you've maybe seen a few of the movies and you aren't really that well, you don't really know the Marvel Cinematic Universe very well, you might not get much out of it. You might just kind of be like, yeah, it's just a big dumb superhero movie with a million different characters in it. And if that's all you think of it, then yeah, that's fine. I understand that. There's a lot of things that you really only get if you have been following all these other movies. All these, 18 movies actually. Before this one, there's 18 movies before this. I mean, I wouldn't say you have to necessarily see every single one of them. Certain ones are more important to see than others, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that you won't really understand unless you've seen some of the other ones, like Thor is there, and it's like, wait, why, if, let's say you missed Thor Ragnarok, you're gonna miss a little bit. You're gonna be like, wait, Asgard was destroyed? What are they talking about? Why doesn't he have his hammer? What's going on? Why is he missing an eyeball? You won't understand certain things if you haven't been keeping up, especially with the more recent ones. Like, there's a lot of things that are referencing some of the Phase 3 movies, especially. Yeah, so in that way, yeah, you're probably not going to get as much out of it if you haven't been following it. I don't know. I mean, I obviously saw it from the point of view of somebody who has been following it and has seen every single one of the previous movies. So I don't know what it's like to see it without having been following the whole thing. So, if you have seen it that way, like seen it for the first time without following all the movies, let me know in the comments what your kind of point of view of it is based on that, if you are like that. Because that's actually an interesting thing that I would like to see, is, how easily were people able to follow the movie who have maybe only seen one or two of the other ones and don't really remember them very much or whatever. I would say somebody who hasn't seen any of them, but let's be honest, everybody has seen at least one of these movies. I mean, come on. Yeah, so this is obviously going to be the biggest movie of the year, definitely going to be the highest grossing movie of the year. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be. We were here a Sunday, a week after the movie came out, at like 2:45 in the afternoon, during the day, and there was still tons of people in the theater. Like, this movie is just that huge. Everybody's going to see it. We made sure to get there early so we could get good seats, and then, the people I was with, they're like, well, nobody's here even, like, we're not going to get a lot of people in our theater. And then as we sat there for a while, yeah, our theater actually filled up pretty quickly. So yeah, what did I like about the movie? The thing I love about it is just kind of, seeing all the characters come together finally, all these, characters who haven't really been together before. Obviously, the Avengers haven't really met with, like, Doctor Strange, and interestingly enough, Ant-Man wasn't in the movie. I thought Ant-Man was going to be in this movie, but he wasn't. I don't know why. Maybe Ant-Man, Ant-Man and Wasp will somehow answer that question, I guess, because that's the next movie. So I don't know. I just found it a little strange that he wasn't. Like, he was in Civil War and stuff, but I don't know. Because I thought this was going to have literally everyone. Like, he wasn't in it, Hawkeye wasn't in it, but I guess Hawkeye was probably with his family or whatever. That was set up in Age of Ultron. The worst of the 3 Avengers movies. Do I like this? Now the real question is, do I think this is a better movie than, say, the first Avengers? I would have to say no to that. Mostly because this is a very messy movie. It's kind of a mess. It's a good mess, you know, and like, you kind of know that it's going to be a mess going in, because it's like, you know, there's a million characters and there's a lot of kind of plot threads all coming together into one into one overall story. So you kind of know that there's going to be like a lot of things, and there was never a moment where like all of the heroes came together in one like battle though. Like there was like a few separate, like a lot of them did, but there was never one moment where like all of them were in the same like battle. I thought they were going to do something like that closer to the end. I guess they're maybe saving that moment for part 2 of Infinity War, which, yes, this definitely ends with a cliffhanger to where you're like, yeah, I really want to see part 2. So, I mean, I guess that's good. I'm excited for part 2 just because of the way this movie ended. I guess that's what they were trying to do, so that works. I don't know. It's hard to talk about this movie like you would talk about a normal movie, just because it's so much different than just a normal movie. It's not just, I'm just going to see a movie. I'm going to see a typical 3-act structure, you know, blah, 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 main character defeats the bad guy by the end, whatever. You know, who's the main character of this movie? I don't know. There is no main character. Everybody's the main character. All the heroes are the main character. Is Thanos the main character, or is he actually the antagonist? I mean, he's supposed to be the villain, but, you know, if you look at it from a certain point of view, maybe he is the main character. Wait a minute. Like, what's... It doesn't follow any sort of common story structure. It's sort of like multiple different scenes from different locations. Like, you start off, you're following these characters, and then you're following these characters, and then you're following these characters, and then you go back to following these characters, but then you go and see these characters for a little bit, and then it's like it all kind of comes together in the end nicely. Which is good. You know, it never feels like in Age of Ultron where it was like, oh, we're just trying to set up future movies. This is a pointless scene that's just trying to set up a future movie. There was never anything like that. Everything felt like it fit within what the overall story of this movie, which was good. One thing that is obviously going to happen with a movie like this is some of the characters are a little underused, but that's kind of expected with, you know, how many characters there are. Like, some characters have more to do and have more of a point to being in the movie than others. Like, for instance, Captain America is in the movie. He doesn't really have a lot to do, you know, although you'd expect him to have more to do because he's like this big character. He just kind of is like there, and he's like, you know, but whereas somebody like Iron Man has a lot more to do. He has more of a role in the movie. Or like Doctor Strange has quite a much bigger role in the movie. But then, you know, again, like, there's some smaller characters like, oh yeah, Falcon's there, War Machine is there, you know, they're just kind of there. But that's fine, because, like, you can't really give every single character with this many characters, you cannot give every single one a major role in the movie. So you can kind of understand it in that way. The Russo brothers do a good job of trying to give each person at least some screen time and some, like, semblance of, like, oh yes, I'm glad they were in the movie. They do a pretty decent job of kind of keeping track of where all the characters are at any given moment and then bringing them together. Something that we saw that they were good at in Civil War. Civil War, I have my problems with that movie. I'm not going to talk about that now, but they did do a good job of that kind of balancing all these different characters at once, and that's probably why they were chosen to direct this, because that's something you absolutely need for this particular movie. One thing that is interesting, though, is you're bringing together a bunch of characters that were sort of written by other people, written and directed from movies that were written and directed by other directors, and so you end up with characters who kind of don't feel quite like they did in those other movies. You know, for instance, you know, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they were all in movies directed by what's his name, James Gunn. and then, you know, so he had a certain way of doing those characters in those two movies, and, you know, there's certain parts in this where you're like, I don't know if that really fits in line with the way this character is, but nothing was too, like, offbeat. Like, everything fit okay. And you kind of expect that with something so huge. It's really hard to kind of keep track of everything at once. Again, that's why this movie, it's hard to talk about like a normal movie. It's such a new thing that's never really been done before, to where it's like, you know, this is sort of going to be this big, you know, movie in history, I think. Like, it's going to be like this big, like, oh, this is, up to this point, this is the biggest cast of any movie ever, or whatever. This is like this huge event. It's not even a movie, it's an event that's been building up for 10 years. Well, almost 10. Did Iron Man come out in 2008? I think it did. So yeah, 10 years. I believe that's correct. Which actually is interesting, because at the beginning of the logo it said Marvel Studios, but then the I and the O in Studios was highlighted because it's like I-O, so it looks like a 10. So I guess that's why they did that, because it's like, oh, 10 years. I just thought of that. I just realized that. But anyways, what else can I say? Thanos is actually pretty great. Thanos is like sort of the new character that's being introduced. He's the villain, obviously. I mean, he's not really new. I mean, he has been introduced in like end credit scenes and stuff, but he hasn't really been introduced. Like, we don't really know anything about him in those other movies. He was actually pretty good in this movie. Like, his motivation isn't just, I want power. It was like, he actually does have somewhat of a motivation that makes sense. Like, it's still mass genocide, but you kind of understand why he wants to do it. And he has sort of a good reason, a good kind of positive motive for doing what he's doing. So that's what's actually surprising to me, because I thought I was going to be like, okay, Thanos is just going to be this big evil guy who has, you know, no sympathy to him whatsoever. And yeah, he is this big evil guy, and he's a very threatening villain. Like, whenever he's on screen, you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to die in this location that anywhere, if you're anywhere near Thanos. So you do feel this, he is an imposing threat, which is good. But at the same time, you do feel somewhat of a sympathy for him in certain moments. I'm not going to say any specifically, because that would be huge spoilers. But it's, you know, some of it involves Gamora, because Gamora is his adopted daughter. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But yeah, so he has some emotional moments, surprisingly. And again, his motivation, while, you know, I might not agree with it, you know, does make sense. And it's like, okay, you understand where he's coming from. You know, and there's sort of a background that he has that kind of feeds into why he wants to do the evil thing that he does, you know, why he feels that way about things. Basically, okay, I guess I could say this, it's not really spoilers, basically what Thanos' overall plan is. So once he gets all the Infinity Stones, he can kill off half the population of the universe, and the whole idea of this is sort of to prevent overpopulation, because overpopulation is what happened on his home planet. So that's sort of his backstory. I guess this might be kind of spoilers, but whatever. But yeah, so that's basically his motivation. Again, I thought it was just going to be, I'm evil, I'm here, you know, to kill people because I'm evil. But no, he actually had a fairly interesting motivation. I liked that. But yeah, what are some problems with the movie? I think I've been mostly saying things that I liked. Again, some problems are it is very uneven at times, uneven pace. Like, sometimes you jump from like a scene that's like out there in this big spaceship, like this huge space thing, and then you suddenly cut to a scene of people just hanging out on the ground, and it's like they just don't fit well together, which makes sense considering the fact that, you know, you have characters like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor, and then you have characters like Spider-Man and Captain America and Falcon and you know, Iron Man. So, you know, you can kind of understand like that's the way it's gonna be. And also, you know, the different locations that the Infinity Stones are. Some of them are out in space, some of them are just hanging out on Earth. So you got a lot of that going on. But yeah, that's really all I have to say. You know, again, if you have been following this universe for a while, you are going to love the movie. Okay, if you've been following this universe for a while, you probably already saw the movie. So I probably should. There's probably no point in even saying this because, you know, everybody who wanted to see the movie has probably seen it at this point because it's a week late. But yeah, you'll definitely love it if you've been following the universe along. If you haven't, I don't know if you'll like it. It's sort of like I'd have to. Like, I can't see it through those eyes because I've watched every single one at least once and then some of them multiple times. So, like, I have a completely different point of view, so I can't really say whether you'll like it or not. You might enjoy it. There are some fun, crowd-pleasing moments, and there's some funny jokes and stuff that you don't necessarily, have to understand what happened in the background to get certain jokes and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I enjoyed it. Definitely not the best movie of the year so far, but, it is just a big, fun blockbuster, and that's all it needed to be. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. You will probably maybe enjoy it too. So, let me know in the comments what you think of Infinity War and what you think of Marvel as a whole, I guess, since this is sort of the big climax that's been building up for 10 years. So let me know what you think of Marvel up to this point because of that. And what you think of this movie individually. So, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
I greet the gents and ladies, I spoil loyal fans. I foil your plans and leave fluids leaking like oil pans. My coiled hands around this microphone are lethal. One thought in my cerebral is deeper than a jeep full of people. MCs are feeble, I came to cause some pandemonium. Battle a band of phony MCs, a stand a lonely one. Imitator, intimidator, stimulator, simulator of data, eliminator. There's never been a greater sense of burial,